Hi everyone, Elizabeth here. So sharing thoughts in regards to, are we losing connection to common sense as well as our intuition, and just supporting the idea of do not succumb to fear. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what's going on in my life and how these examples can hopefully help translate things that can help you in your own life. You know, America is in a lot better state than the majority of the world, especially because we have certain constitutional rights and certain freedoms. Now, people are getting so disconnected from their intuition as well as their common sense. Now, I've noticed that there's been a ton of individuals who've left, especially if they've been in yoga or in some form of energy healing. The ones who have disconnected themselves from their higher mind are operating in the lower mind of survival, but that's the area of the brain that is tapped a little bit more into fear because it's logic and reason. You have to have logic and reason in order to navigate through life. However, there's always this tipping point or boundary where if you're too much into this part of the brain, things start to just get unbalanced. Now, I've known so many people throughout the last few months that have just said, I don't know about the shot. It just feels icky. Something about it feels icky. That is the intuition talking. That is the higher mind. That is the gateway to your soul that's telling you that something doesn't feel right. And what did most people do? They tapped into their lower mind. They succumbed to fear. And they just wanted shit to get back to normal, so they took the shot. They completely negated any form of common sense about how it takes 5 to 10 years for drugs to get on the market to get FDA approval, 5 to 10 years or 10 years on average for any vaccine to have some form of approval. They do not understand that we are still in emergency use, and the trials will end in 2023. So we're still like a year and a half away, or maybe some vaccines is 2022. We're still a year away from all of this. They've completely lost common sense because of wanting, because of the goodie bag, like the dangling carrot, like we'll get back to normal. That's what the governor said. Our Washington state governor said, well, you'll just continue to have to wear masks and be locked down until we have 70% or more of Washingtonians getting their shot. There was a promotion that happened probably in almost every state, but in Washington state, it was jabs for joints. So basically, if you got your shot, you got a free marijuana joint. Now, isn't that common sense, or maybe partly teases your intuition in a wrong way, that the government once incarcerated millions of people for using or holding or being in possession, of marijuana? Now they're giving away for free. None of that makes sense. And that's where people, the dumbing down of the body and the brain is insane. It has long been shown that overuse of Tylenol and things like ibuprofen has actually decreased empathy. That comes through a lot of natural research, small funded studies that are not always widely available. Tylenol, there's been a research study that just has come out that shows Tylenol is actually damaging for children's brains. That's scary, especially because we've already produced a generation of obesity and obese kids, and all of this stuff on your genetics, your epigenetics, diabetes, autoimmune disorders, all of this does somehow alter and affect the brain. So now we're breeding almost an entire generation of brain dead children, not only from being duped up or drinking from mother's milk. Say if a mom is on Tylenol every day to kill her pain, like what is that doing when that milk comes out into that baby and that baby is ingesting the byproduct of Tylenol? Now you have children who are doped up on social media and technological advices. I'm probably going to do a separate video on this, but one of my former clients was a child psychologist, and she told me, she said, Elizabeth, do not ever put an infant baby or an infant child, young child, toddler age, in front of a computer screen. And I was like, well, why is that? She goes, because it's like injecting the child with heroin. There's something about, I don't remember the science of it, but there was something about the computer in a child's brain warped it or just made it operate differently, that it was kind of on the same level as when you inject your body with heroin, and it gives you, your brain that massive hit to the brain of dopamine or whatever is getting released out when you inject yourself with heroin. And there's also long-term damage to that. So, if you look at how math is being taught to children today, I saw a video and I'm like, what? It was like 8 minutes of trying to explain 8 times 6, which is something that should be done in about 15 to 20 seconds. So people have succumbed to either fear to do this just due to the fact that they want to keep their job. Let me tell you, I've gotten a second and third email that says I will not be coming back on site because I don't have a shot or whatever. This really is medical discrimination. I have to look this up because it just seems like all of these companies are following the trend of one another and doing all of these things that seem very wrong or very unconstitutional. So in this sense, I do know other people in other parts of the world have it a lot harder. I have a friend from India, and his parents are still in India, and supposedly, from what I heard from him, was that the Indian authorities are threatening their citizens now to the point where if they don't get their shot, they will or could potentially lose their national passport. Some parts in the Middle East, I think it's in Bahrain, the same person has family in that part of the world and in Kuwait, and kind of said something similar, that they need to show their card and passport or whatever it's called in order to go to the market just to buy goods. So a lot of this is biblical prophecy. We have 2 major belief systems that are in battle with one another, and hopefully the freedom side will come out and win. But in order for this to win, you have to stop just selling out about it. I've had so many people, so many old people. One of the retirement homes that I used to teach like 8 hours of classes there a week, and some things went virtual, I can't go back. And now, as of July 1, you have to have your card just to even enter the building. However, a resident can bring in anybody they want into their room, regardless if they have the card or not. So none of this shit makes sense. And in order for us to move forward, to get back to our old ways of living, you have to stop playing into the system. You have to stop succumbing to fear. There is an ascension process happening that I don't really understand because I'm not really researching this or paying attention to it. But I sat here and thought, you know what? Maybe this part of my life that is falling away is actually the blessing in disguise. I got divorced a few years ago. My ex-husband left me. It crushed me to death. I always had hope, but I just wasn't really hopeful because the sea of tech people out here are just different and weird and not in alignment with what I'm envisioning. And you know what? I'm with the most loving person, the nicest man I've probably ever met in my life. And I keep saying, I think he's literally the nicest person I've ever met besides my mother. I've never not heard him say one mean thing. I've not heard him say one sad or bad thing to any other person, or about anybody else. Like, I've been judgmental for sure. And so I've been, oh, this is a 14.
Oh, I'm looking for a 4.
That's up to the right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Everybody sees me sitting out here and they think I'm sitting here waiting for a delivery person. So he's been a great inspiration in my life of what is connected to the heart center. And none of these organizations are connected to the heart center. The retirement home is ran by a psychopathic millennial. I will no longer be going back probably physically to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And if you know anything about Bill Gates over the last year, like maybe these places are just not in my soul alignment. So you have to keep your faith. You have to stay strong. This is a time of being tested right now. It's like separating the wheat from the chaff. You know that old saying? So if this doesn't feel right for you and you do want some form of medical freedom, like do you really want your employers or other people to really know what is going on in your medical health? If you don't, then you have to put your feet firm into the ground and stick hold to your beliefs, because I know at this point in time, those things will be rewarded in the future. Now, if the whole world starts to fall apart and we have mass parts of our population that are unemployed because of this, then, you know, maybe we'll have a different resolution or solution out of this. But you cannot lose faith. You cannot succumb to the fear of this. So much truth is coming out right now that I really do believe that fear is like a magnet. It can attract and attach things that are not for your highest good, that is dark, sludgy energy. And the virus or, you know, respiratory disease, whatever they're calling it now, is part of that. That's the new form of science that is starting to evolve, the quantum part of science, in addition to understanding how things like trauma can attract certain things in your life that are not positive. And I'm not saying just because somebody's been through trauma that they're doom and gloom. I'm not saying that at all. But there is a different frequency or energy level in the mindsets of people who kind of have it a little bit more together versus the people who are more in that victim state mentality. So I wanted to share some thoughts with this. So if you're going through something similar, you're not alone. I do not believe deep in my heart that anybody should be ever forced to do anything. That's like the whole point of rape. It's non-consensual. When you do not consent to something, you should not be forced to do something with your body that you don't want to do. And I think this is, you know, injecting yourself with chemicals and aluminum going to the brain and all these kids dying of blood clots. Like, I don't know. It's just, we've always lived in a backwards society. And I think people who think that it takes death to overcome death are highly misleaded. They're so misguided in the fact of any form of spiritual theory or really understanding the power of the heart and the heart center. It will not take more death and destruction and poison to get us back to a normal. They're trying to set us up for a new normal. Anyways, I've not really been inspired to do a lot. It was like 100 degrees in Seattle, so it's finally like back to a normal temperature. Nice cloudy day here. So thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you can subscribe, that would be great. I would love to build this channel more. I feel like I'm just talking to the air for like 3 years, but never give up hope. All right, see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.